actually got the offer for the job, and I turned it down. 4 months later, they called me back and say, we know you didn't want to do this, but we're actually creating a position that we think would fit your tool base and what you have. And so I ended up with a job with them. Again, it wasn't something I was looking for, but because I went there, supposedly did a good job on the interview, something else came out of it. And plus, I was networking. Yeah.
So how did you turn the job offer down?
I said no. No, I mean, it was you know, I talked about earlier about the reason why I was leaving CLC was because I wanted to get off the road. It was a national sales manager's position, which means I'd be traveling probably even more than I was at the time. So I just said, no thanks, but no thanks. But I did leave them with this. If there's something else that comes up in the company down the road that makes sense, keep me in mind. Because to be honest with you, when I first went there, I had no interest working for a licensee at all. Because on the agency side, you have a perception of what it's like to be on the licensee side. But even after that one interview and that one meeting I had with them, I came out of thinking, I don't want this job, but I can see myself doing this one day. So it actually changed my mind when I went through that process.
Did they ask why you came for the interview if you didn't want the job?
What?
Did they ask why you came for the interview if you didn't want the job?
No, because they didn't know that. I didn't tell them that. Now, and it's a fine line here. I don't want to, let's be careful with this. I don't want you to be a serial interviewer and just going out interviewing all the time and just turning down the job, whatever the case may be. What I'm saying is don't pass up the opportunity if you get one to go and interview, because you never know what's going to turn into. Now, the funny thing that it comes kind of full circle, because at the time I didn't want to be a sales manager, I wanted to do something else, and right now they're kind of trying to turn me into becoming that eventually down the road. So you just never know where the life's going to lead you. So again, I don't want to, like I said, don't get me wrong, I don't want you going out and just interviewing for jobs that you don't want. You don't want to waste their time. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's worth it to you. At this stage of your career, you need to get as much experience as you can. You got to be a little bit selfish when it comes to stuff like that. Do your homework before, and I'm not talking about, well, yeah, do your homework here, don't get me wrong. But before you go and interview, do your homework on the company you're going to interview with. Today, it's so much easier than it used to be. See, I'm an old fogey again now, where now you just go on the internet, you can learn pretty much anything about a company. You can go on LinkedIn, you can go on any social websites and find out a lot about the company. Back in the old days, it was really hard to do that. But you have the tools, so know who you're going to talk to and investigate the people. A lot of times you'll know if we're going to interview, these are the people we're going to be interviewing with. If they don't tell you that, ask them. Say, do you mind telling me who you're going to be meeting with that day? And look them up. Try to find out what their background is. Because I know I've had people come in, and I think that's kind of common sense, maybe it's not. If people come in and I ask them about the industry or ask them about our business or company, and they have no clue. And to be honest with you, right away, they're disqualified. I mean, we may still have another 15-minute conversation, but I'm pretty much checked out by that point, to be honest with you. So do your homework. Know what you're getting yourself into. Ask questions. But one of my biggest pet peeves when I interview someone is they don't ask me questions. That tells me you must not be really interested in this job. So you get to your question earlier about, why am I interviewing if I'm not even interested in the job? That's the feeling I get when someone doesn't ask questions. And it also kind of tells you a little bit about their personality as well, that they're not going to be invested in the company, or when you're whatever position they're in, they've got to be able to learn how to ask questions or they're never going to grow. So ask questions. Balance between being humble and confident. You got to be confident when you're in these interviews. But at the same time, you just don't want to be someone that's going to just brag and be real cocky about it. We always hear about the fine line between being confident and cocky. And you want to be very confident. You want people to know that you know what you're talking about and that you have confidence in yourself. But at the same time, you have to balance it out a little bit. And pick your moments when you're going to brag, because that's an interview. You do have to kind of brag about yourself a little bit. And for some people, that's really hard to do. I know for me, it's something I'm not very comfortable doing. But when the interviewer gives you the opportunity to say, okay, this is the moment where you need to brag on yourself a little bit, you take that opportunity. Now, if you're in the middle of the interview and it's something totally random and you start name dropping, again, it's something that the person interviewing will just check out. So if you're trying to name drop someone or trying to brag about something, then a lot of people can kind of see through that. So take the opportunity when asked, because a lot of times there will be a point in the interview where they're going to say, what have you done? At your old job, what was something that you're proud of that you did? What was influential in the company that you used to work with? They'll ask you questions like that. There'll also be the questions of, if you're getting dropped off on an island, what are the 3 things that you want to take with you? You can only have 3 things. There's questions like that because they want to understand how you think a little bit outside the box. They want to throw you off a little bit as well because they'll be asking a bunch of questions about your education, your career, and all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden they'll say, all right, so what's your favorite word? I have a good friend of mine at CLC that does that. That's his interview questions. What's your favorite word? And it just kind of throws people off a little bit. But what he wants to know is, can you think quick on your feet and can you come up with a creative answer? It doesn't really matter. A lot of times it doesn't even matter what the answer is. They just want to know how you respond to things and how you can articulate yourself. So then we'll get into, okay, you got a job, so you're just now starting off. Assume every email will be forwarded on to someone else. This happens all the time. Again, one of those things that just make me cringe. Where, and I'll give you a perfect example, this happened last year at Boxercraft. We had someone in accounting that was going back and forth with one of the creditors, and she said, I can't stand working with these bookstores because they never pay. Well, that email, somewhere down the line, got sent on to the bookstore, to the customer. So here we are in the email with one of our people talking bad about one of our customers. Do you think we kept that customer anymore? No, they're gone. And I see it all the time, so be careful when you put in writing. And just assume, especially if you're writing about somebody else or something else, just assume that's going to get to them eventually, because we are inherently, sometimes we're lazy with emails. We just pass it on, pass it on, pass it on, without reading, especially if you get long string emails, you don't even read it. You just pass it along, but I guarantee that end user, they're going to go through there, because people are kind of naturally nosy as well. They want to know what's kind of going on. So they're going to read through that. So always be conscious of that. At the same token, at the same time, also, if you're going to pass along an email to someone, especially if it's a subject that you think maybe a little controversial or something like that, read through the email yourself. If you've got to edit or cut some things out, then do it. At least save face for someone. Yeah. So always assume the email's going to get to someone. Be sociable. This is a mistake I made my first 2 or 3 years at CLC. I had my head so in the job that I didn't really do a good job of building a rapport with my colleagues. I admit that openly. And it's something that I had to work on as I got a little bit older. But be sociable and build that rapport with your colleagues. But don't get caught up in the drama and the rumor mills in the office, because that is what will get you in trouble. Don't be the guy getting drunk at the party, passing out in the bathroom. Don't be the person kissing the CEO's daughter, whatever the case may be, unless some of that happens from time to time. But don't be that guy, don't be that girl. Because again, what we talked about before is branding. You're branding yourself. And these are the type of things, especially early in your career, can really gain your reputation. If you mess up, let your boss know so they find out from you before they find out from someone else. Now, I'm speaking about this from someone that reports to a boss and someone that I'm a boss for. So I'm speaking from both sides here. First of all, from the manager standpoint, I want to know if something goes wrong to help protect you. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's my job as a manager to take care of my people, the people that report to me. That's my sole job, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. I can't help you if I don't know about something. So if I know something is going down, you come and you tell me something's going on, I have a game plan so that when it comes from the CEO or it comes from the customer, whatever the case may be, I have a game plan, I can do it, take care of it, and at the same time, hopefully protects you from some of it as well. So that's from a manager standpoint, but just from a, from the, I like to use the word subordinate, but from the person reporting it to the boss, you gotta build some trust at some point. You can't be afraid to tell your manager that you messed up. You can't, because that's the only way you're gonna learn. So always go to your manager, your boss, whatever the case may be, and let them know when you mess up, because then they can also take the opportunity to teach you a little bit, to learn. Because as a manager, you'll hear later on, people are going to they're going to make mistakes. No one's perfect. Become a utility player. Know all parts of the business. Wherever you go into, try to know every facet of the business. It's like a utility player. It's like there's players, baseball players that have been around for years and years because they know several different positions. Not because they're really good, but you need a good utility guy, whether it be in football or baseball, softball, whatever the case may be. You need that utility player that can play several positions. So if you make yourself more valuable to the company, know more about the company. Plus, again, going on later on to get into management, it's easier to teach things. If you're tunnel vision, you only know one thing, then that's all you know. You can't teach anybody anything else about anybody else. So always have more peripheral and understand other parts of the company. And this kind of goes back to earlier point. Do not fear criticism or being critiqued. It's going to happen. In fact, I would suggest, and I'll say it here in a minute, to openly ask for it. It's the only way you're going to grow. I think a lot of times we're afraid to do something wrong. We're afraid to ask someone, what did I do wrong, because you're afraid of hearing it. And a lot of times we don't like negative feedback. Again, going back to the millennial thing, that's a perception of millennials. They can't take critique, they can't take criticism. So, something just don't be afraid of it, because it's only going to make you stronger. So we get into the kind of middle stage of the career. If you go to a presentation somewhere, don't talk about it until you get out of the building. Don't do it in the elevator, because I've seen so many times where, oh, you know, we had a really good meeting, or man, that meeting stunk, and that guy, man, that guy's a jackass. You know, I can't believe you work with him anymore. Well, guess what? His coworker, his wife, anybody could be in the elevator right next to you. So if you got comments, just wait to get out there. And again, even if it's good comments, or you're bragging a little bit, people they're aware of that kind of thing. And they'll go back and say, hey, you know, I just saw those guys you had a meeting with. Those guys were just arrogant as can be, or they'll report that kind of stuff. And it's happened before. I've seen it happen before. So just kind of be aware of your surroundings when you're in meetings or when you get out of meetings. Customer service is not just for the customer. Internal customer service, I would argue, internal customer service sometimes is more important, because you need to build a rapport again with your colleagues. You need to have their trust. You need to have, they need to have your back. You need to have theirs. Because in order, a lot of times when you get your job done, you're going to have to depend on them. A lot of times. I know at CLC, there are a lot of things that I did, but I really depend on a lot of people back at the office to get those things done. They did other jobs than what I did. And so it's really important to build a good rapport with them, so they'll go to bat for you. Because if, you know, if you're a jerk to them, or you don't help them out, you're going to go on the bottom of the list. You need something that's an emergency, that can wait a little way. It can wait a little while. But if you're high on the radar screen and you have a good relationship with them, they're going to get things done for you. So remember customer service internal as well. Become tactful. Now this is a hard one here. I think this is a hard one for younger people, and you just have to learn how to do this. And what I mean by this is, a lot of times you're going to have to give bad news. And you have to learn to do it when you don't come across as being a jerk. Or you have to encourage people to do something, but you don't want to come across too pushy. Here's a perfect example. So a lot of times the problem I've come up with universities, when I was dealing with the relationship part of the universities with the licensing director, is that they would not approve artwork for 3 weeks. So we would get email calls from licensees saying, gosh, why can't this school approve artwork? You know, what's going on over there? You know, they're being lazy, whatever the case may be. Now, I've seen people do this, so this is where I bring it up. So a rep would then, do one of two things. They would forward that email on, which we talked about earlier, which didn't sound too good. Or two, they would email or call the licensing director on campus and say, yeah, you're holding up some artwork. You know, you can't get anything done because you're not approving artwork. To me, that's not the most professional way to handle it. The way I would handle it, I send an email and say, I just want to let you know we've received feedback from the licensee, and it appears that we have a lot of artwork pending with the university. Is there anything you can do to help the situation out? Thanks for your help. Now, if you notice, in that email, I never put the blame on that person. I put the blame more on the university, or I put the emphasis on the university. And when I mentioned their name, I said, if there's anything you can do to help, I made them part of the solution. I didn't make them the problem. Now, does it do the same thing? Is it a little bit passive aggressive? Yeah, maybe so, but you're not demonizing the person. So learning a tactful way to give someone bad news or to communicate with them. And it's something that may not make sense right now, it'll make sense a little bit later on, but I remember that being something that I used to work on a lot with a lot of people that reported to me, was just being a little bit more tactful in the way they communicated. When you get a promotion, it should be seamless. This kind of goes back to the whole millennial thing we were talking about earlier. There's two reactions when you get a promotion. One is, oh, I can't believe they got promoted. The other reaction is, oh, I thought he was already doing that. Oh, that makes sense, okay. The second one is the one you want. That's the one. So people know you've been doing that job, and when you get that promotion, you're like, wow, he or she's already been doing that all this time? Man, I thought they were already the director. Oh, well, okay. So that's the reaction you want people to have when you get a promotion. Working on presentation skills. If you really wanted to grow, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, get as much practice as you can doing presentation. It'll suck at first, I'll be honest with you. I know when I was in school, I took a drama class for this particular thing. And I'm not the best speaker in the world, but you have to be a little more comfortable speaking in front of people. And a lot of people don't do that a lot. I don't know your curriculum. I know when I was in college, we didn't do a lot of major presentations. We do some group presentations all the time, but not when I was like the sole person up here under focus under the microscope. So whenever you get the opportunity, work on your presentation skills. Handwritten notes go a long way. In an age where everything's electronic, we have emails, the handwritten note is the one thing that I receive that I think is the most meaningful thing. Again, we talked earlier about how it's the old fogies that are kind of running the companies these days. Well, that's how they communicate. That's how they do a lot of things. So they like those handwritten notes. So take the time. It shows that you're taking the time, you're taking the effort, you're doing something else other than just doing a flippant email, because that's what some people see as an email. I'm not saying it's not okay to send an email and say thank you for your time, appreciate where the case may be, but a handwritten note just separates you a little bit more from the other person. So now we're into the management part of it. And I'm telling you this because I want you to think about this as you go through your career. Don't be a micromanager. This can be hard at times, but a micromanager does two things. One, you'll drive the people that report to you absolutely bonkers, very crazy. And if you look at people that lead businesses, you know, I saw a great quote that day. It was, people don't lead businesses, they lead their bosses. And it's exactly right. So don't be a micromanager. Two, the second reason is that you'll drive yourself nuts because you feel like you have to do everything. And then all of a sudden you become very stressed and you just run around with your head cut off. So try not to be a micromanager. Now there's times, there's projects where you have to do that. There's time and place for it. Yes, sure there is. But just don't make it something that you do on a consistent basis. It's okay to let the people make mistakes. We talked about this a little bit earlier. I tend to say, give them a little bit of a rope, let them touch the stove, but don't let them keep their hand on it for a minute. Maybe how do you learn? It's like kids. The only way you learn something's hot, they put their hand on it. So it's okay, again, from your standpoint to make mistakes, but as a manager, you have to allow them to make those mistakes. For example, I would usually do, whenever we had to do presentations on campus, it was myself and then the rep and then maybe the coordinator, whatever the case may be, but I would generally give the presentation. Then after a while, after I felt like my rep was a little bit better and had worked on his presentation skills or her presentation skills, I would let them go out and do it. Now, I wouldn't let them go pitch a whole new business plan, but I'll let them give an update. So I would give them the opportunity to grow, but under safe circumstances. I wouldn't throw them out there in front of a firing squad. Gotta be patient. And this goes again both for the manager and the person reporting to them as well, is that not everybody knows everything. I know the manager that I had when I first started at CLC had to be incredibly patient, because I knew nothing about licensing when I got into the business. No one really did. There's no classes really, there's no courses at the time. And so, but you also have to be patient with your new careers, because there's a good chance you may be doing something that is totally off the board that you're not thinking about right now. And I remember when I started at CLC, they told me when I started it's about a year and a half learning curve. I'm like, year and a half? I consider myself someone that can do something that pretty quick. 6 months in the job, I was thinking, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. I hit a wall. And everybody that has ever come through that office at CLC, and it's been their first job, they've always hit a wall about the 6 to 8 month mark, because you get frustrated because you're not picking it up nearly as fast as you think you can. A year and a half comes around, like they advertised, you get it, and everything's better. So be patient, both as a manager, but also with yourself. As a manager, you work for your people. It's not the other way around. And a lot of times people think, oh, I'm working for my boss, or a boss may say, you work for me. That's not all it is. I think being a manager is making sure that you have the tools, the technology, wherever the case may be, to make you successful. That's my job. And I deal with that as a manager. A manager, a lot of people think it's really great to be a manager. It's not all that great. It's even great benefits, don't get me wrong. But then that's where you're dealing with people a lot. You're dealing with emotions and feelings. A lot of things that sometimes aren't even job related, to be honest with you. So some people are cut out to be a manager, some people aren't for those reasons.